Well, self-interest always gets in the way, so, I suspect he's looking after himself. As you point out, he's turning his back on nuclear and putting all his money and his energy into non-nuclear renewable energy. He went to the Nationals party room today. As I mentioned at the start of the show, that turned into a shouting match. And he's now picked a fairly heavy fight with Peter Dutton, and he says that Dutton and other politicians who are pushing nuclear out of touch, they don't know what they're talking about. The world's not embracing nuclear. Give me the facts on nuclear. I mean, yes, it would take a long time, and yes, it's probably expensive, but anything worth doing these days is expensive. But is the rest of the world taking uranium, including ours, and using it to generate nuclear energy, which is clean and green? Why then don't we?
Well, it's a really good question, and it's one that baffles me for years. I know that the opposition, and particularly Chris Bowen, like to say that it's going to cost many tens of billions and will take many, many years for us to be able to achieve this. I don't think that's quite right, because you look at the speed with which other countries are doing it. So just between now and 2029, I only look 5 years out into the future. There's many more. Have a look at this. Over the next 5 years, there are going to be, in the world, 53 nuclear reactors built to generate electricity. Look at some of the countries that are doing it. Bangladesh, for goodness sakes, is doing it. Turkey has got 4. Egypt has got 4. India has understandably got 8. China, 26. So here is a situation where right now Australia has 0 and no plans even to get to that next point. But there's a second thing I want to show you as well, is I want to show you the world's biggest uranium exporters. If we have a look at this. So here is the hypocrisy to me. Is that Australia has in the past been number 3 on this list for a long, long time. We are amongst the biggest uranium exporters and producers in the world. Every single ounce of uranium that we create, uranium oxide, is exported to, guess what? Generate energy in other parts of the world. Just like coal is exported and generates energy in other parts of the world. We don't want it anymore, so we go and export it and give it to somebody else. And what do? They burn it and they generate electricity to give themselves cheap, reliable energy. We do the same with nuclear. So there is hypocrisy there. Go one step further and have a look at, say, for example, in nuclear medicine right now. I want to show you this one as well. So here are the top nuclear medicine producers in the world. You've got France is there, you've got Canada is there, you've got Europe is there, quite obviously South Africa is there, you've got Russia there. We'll keep on going because guess what's next on the list? Australia is there. Australia creates nuclear medicine. In fact, we also produce 50% of the world's eradicated isotopes, which are used to create what? Green energy type things like electric cars. So the argument here is, even though we've got ANSTO at Lucas Heights that creates all of this nuclear medicine that's required for the world, one of the biggest in the world, and creates all of these eradicated isotopes that are used for creating electric cars, high-speed trains, all the things that people need, we don't want nuclear. And I just sit there and think we're nuts. Because the fact of the matter is we already have a nuclear industry here in Australia. We already have export dollars that come from that, and yet we somehow demonise it and say we don't want any more. It is absolutely crazy to think that way.
Yeah, just finally, I mean, politically, the problem that this creates is that people like Chris Bowen, who have complete obsession with green energy, and he set these sort of targets that are almost impossible to achieve. When you get someone like Twiggy Forrest talking the big talk about green energy and giving you support, it gives people like Chris Bowen confidence, which really annoys me. But look, the argument will go on, Ross, but I feel, and I'd just finally like your comment on that, can't we at least get to the point where we have a cross-party national debate once and for all about whether we should at least examine whether we should take one step toward it?
Well, 100%. We're about in the future to have nuclear submarines. So we have to have nuclear capability. So we have to have nuclear skills. Why wouldn't you use those skills to provide the energy? And remember that nuclear does not emit carbon dioxide. So technically, many countries are embracing it because it doesn't have the emissions of carbon dioxide. Now, to me, that seems to make the absolute sense. And if you want to get to the next step of science and go to fusion technology, which is the holy grail of self-perpetuating electricity in the future with no emissions, guess what? You need to start that process. You need a nuclear reactor. So this is where really, if Australia does not embrace the science, we get left behind. And that's where the philosophy over the science is the fundamental problem that Australians should mistrust.